Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are trying to gain literary immortality by scratching our initials on the wall, except we've forgotten how letters are formed.
Exactly. So to figure out exactly how those letters go together, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
And then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in writing it, and then we talk about stories sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A Doof Media production. Did you know that cursive is not truly standardized?
No. I mean, they tried to teach us, I think, like, in kindergarten, and then they gave up halfway through the year.
Oh yeah, so. For sure. But like in addition, right? So that's like one standard that they teach, and I'm sure that probably varies state by state. But like recently,
yeah,
I was trying to figure out a new signature because new name and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, I forgot how some of these are supposed to be done in cursive, right? And I realized I actually had been doing a couple letters like completely wrong this whole time, but that actually doesn't really it was wrong according to those standards, but like you could read it, so it was fine, right? Like It looked like print letters just with more loops, and that's actually what some of the cursive standards kind of differed on. Some are like very loopy, and that's sort of the point. And then there's other standards that were like, hey, let's get rid of the loops. They take too much time. And then, so it's just a standard made for less loops. But yeah, there's no standard cursive. So your cursive, if it's readable, then it is correct.
Nice. Well, see, honestly, I have always had the question of what exactly is the functionality of cursive?
Well,
like, what is it supposed to do for you?
So it's twofold. So one is a historical reason, and this one is more like provable, that when people were writing with feathers and ink, right, and quills, it is bad to lift off the quill from the paper. So
isn't it like dry out or something?
Something like that, or maybe it drips. I don't know necessarily, but I know it's bad. I know it's a problem if you do that too much, right? Or it's a hassle or something. So the idea was to keep the quill connected to the paper as much as possible. This was done during, I think, the Renaissance, which is in Italy, which is why it's called italics. You get it? Because it's from Italy.
Italics.
Also, italics is something separate from cursive as well. They're like, it's weird. Anyway. If cursive should be slanted is another little thing that people debate about. So that's one thing. So that's one like real reason why cursive was developed. And then there was an additional idea that cursive helps you write faster because you don't lift up your pen from the page. Although
it definitely does.
Well, according to research,
it'll be sloppy, but
there was findings that like it actually didn't really affect things that much, or at the very least that was a difference very, very hard to measure. Like on average, people who learned cursive first and people who learned print first, they wrote about the same speed. So, yep, who knows?
That's very interesting. Well, I mean, since we're already going into details, let's talk about this week's challenge, which was, of course, to write a deeply descriptive short story. And you brought a fantastic story, didn't you?
That's right. The words this week were, and I've already forgotten them, so let me... God damn it, I closed the app too. I'm a fool.
It means you didn't use them in your story.
Yeah, that's right. I just pissed on them. Sorry, that was just the first word that came to my mind. So the words this week were punish, pair, pure, and funny. I used all but funny. Did I use punish? I did use punish in the first phrase right at the beginning, which just to put it in there basically. So the challenge this week was to focus entirely on describing like one object. I did something a little different than like my original outline, which is I described like a house, and it's not at all what I actually meant to do with the challenge. Which was more to focus on one particular object and really, really drill down on like one very specific smaller thing than this. And so I kind of regret, halfway through, as it was already kind of too deep to like start over, and too close to the deadline to start over. I was regretting, not doing what I had originally outlined, but I continued and finished this off anyway. In the end, this did have a bit of environmental storytelling, I suppose, that's more of a like, it's more of like a game development term, but it sort of applies here too. And that's what I was trying to practice as I went through. So I was still happy that I did it. I don't think it's necessarily the most interesting story I've ever written. And it's not what I still do want to redo that challenge of picking a single thing and describing it. But I still got some good stuff out of it, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, overall, I really did love your story, and I cannot wait to hear it.
All right, well, let's just get into it. This is the house in the snowfield. The house stands alone. It is 2 stories tall but squat, with a flat roof, and made of large cement bricks, a gray surface as cold as the snow that decorates the barren, flat landscape around it. The surface is weathered, pockmarked in places, bare. Along the bricks are white scratches suggestive of writing, though few are legible. Scrawled above head height, close to one corner, is the phrase, "God, punish the sinful." The pure, fresh snow hides all terrain features but the tallest, burying every piece of rubble and every hint of green under cool white powder. The sun is shining overhead, as bright as anything, and the entire view takes a look as if the land is glowing, as if the land doesn't exist, and all there is this short, gleaming gray house. The door is the brightest feature of the outside. The windows clear and trimmed in white. The door is a deep brown, with a scratched and fogged circular window staring like the eye of waking Polyphemus. The brass knob would stick to one's hand from the sweat on one's skin. It's so cold, but it turns as easy as anything. The door opens, but stops about a foot after opening, only just enough to squeeze through, blocked by the refrigerator, which has been dragged across the hardwood floor, leaving twin grooves, to stand close. It is open, and empty of everything, including its shelves. The foyer is short. A barren coat rack stands to one side. 2 pairs of small, dull pink boots, one pair bigger than the other, scattered underneath. The smaller pair is caked with mud up to the ankle, but both are covered in a layer of dust which the light from the cracked open front door cannot penetrate. Immediately after the door is shut, the whistling of the wind, which is easily ignored while it remains ever present, cuts off, and only quietly whispers its howl against the walls and rattles from elsewhere in the house. Instead, the wood flooring creaks and footsteps bounce off the walls. The floor plan of the house is not open, though the foyer does lead past some stairs into a living room which is bordered by a kitchen, separated by a half wall. The windows looking out to the back of the house are tall, though wooden planks cover most of them, so only the thin slants of light that can slide through illuminate the room. They land and bounce off the floor, revealing where the planks came from, as in this room the flooring has been mostly pulled up, revealing a cement floor as gray as the outside. The room also contains the few signs of habitation. In the center, on the dark cement, is a pile of ashes and blackened ground. The scent of wood smoke and plastic lingers, gently making themselves known, but letting themselves also be easily forgotten. The ashes are long dead, and lightly scattered by the wind, and scraps of those same planks poke out. Above, the ceiling is blackened as well, with a trail leading to one of the windows smashed near the top. The remaining glass rattles against the wood as the wind changes direction. Between the kitchen and living room, opposite the half wall, there is a series of lines and notches on the wall. They begin about 4 feet above the floor, 3 columns of them, one in purple marker, one in green marker, and another in notches. The first purple line is labeled 4 years, and just to the right and 3 inches below is another labeled 3 years in green. They extend for a few more years, always matched with the corresponding one in the other column, before vanishing abruptly when the purple is labeled 8 years. There is one more label above the green column, but carved in short, straight lines, as if someone merely stuck a blade straight at the wall to cut them in. It reads 23, and it is much higher than the rest. There is no matching notch in the purple column. The kitchen still has a table, metal-legged and glass-topped, though the chairs are nowhere to be found. The counter is false granite, polished, scratched. In the grooves, there are quiet red stains. The stove, a space away from the gaping space the fridge had, is old. The grill is missing, as well as the parts in one of the burners. It smells of steel and oils here. When one stands still, a drip, drip, drip sound echoes from beneath the sink. Back to the foyer, the stairs are carpeted and filthy, deeply stained with mud and other things as one walks up. It smells faintly of mold. Upstairs, the carpet continues, though the stains fade a bit. The mud left behind on the ground floor. There are 2 bedrooms. The master bedroom is more lived in. The drawers left open, scraps of clothing left behind. The bed is unmade, and the sheets have holes in them. The bedding disappeared. The room smells faintly of sweat and wet dog. The master bath is likewise lived in. Empty bottles are left in one corner, and both the mirror and glass cage of the shower are streaked. The mirror is cracked, a circle of shards smashed in about the center, those shards glittering on the counter and the sink, decorated with dark red stains and streaks, long left behind and uncleaned. In the other bathroom, out in the hall, things are left similarly ragged, though a toothbrush, bristles spread wide, is left in the sink, head in the drain. The other bedroom's door is firmly shut. Inside is a mess. A fallen bunk bed blocks the first steps into the room, the mattresses torn into with knife or hands. A dresser, cheap plastic and pink, is crunched on the floor, the drawers loose and punched with holes the size of boots. A plastic baby doll lies prone, hands over its head, the back of its head featuring a deep dimple, suggesting a hollow inside. A teddy bear with one leg and a whole trailing stuffing is draped over one of the mattresses. The other mattress is burned. A spot, black and curled orange, the size of a dinner plate, decorates it. Its remnants, burned plastic and pressed into the very air. On the floor next to the burned spot is a mug. On its side, empty. The mug reads, "Best sister this side of the Mississippi." The text is faded, as if fingers had rubbed over the porcelain surface long enough to rub away the paint.
Wow, wow, wow. What a fantastic story. I honestly just really liked sort of how everything that you describe within this story has a solid connection to the previous and forthcoming thing that you are going to, go to. It feels very much so like we are just in the eye of a camera, going from a wide shot, then, a like mid on the door, and then a close up on the handle, and then so on, and then so forth. And really, I guess my biggest question is this a real place that you're trying to describe, or did you just come up with it? And exactly why did you choose to focus on this place?
So yeah, no, it was made up. I definitely drew from like an old house that I lived in, but it was mostly made up. Basically, I just like picked a description and started going through it. The initial like seed of it, basically, of like, oh, this is why I want to write this, was the idea of the notches on the wall and stuff, and sort of just like, former inhabitants and current inhabitants and stuff. And that was basically like the entire motivation for it, and it just kind of slowly came from there. And it definitely did help with writing it just like that I could just have a path of just like, let's describe the outside, and then the entryway, and then this room and that room. So writing it wasn't too difficult, but I definitely struggled a little bit with keeping things interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I would say that. So it's like one thing that I did find that could have maybe helped in, I guess, the purpose of what you were writing. Granted, I did really like it, and I did really like this place that you were describing, and you really did bring it to a life through your text. That is without a doubt. But I do feel that two key things that were missing for me was what it was like to be here, like that feeling beyond the smell. And also, just having some sort of character, having some sort of specific voice that is looking at this place through their eyes. I think that would kind of help when it comes to the purpose of this story, and also, I guess, the how interesting this story really is. Not saying that it's not, but yeah, I think that could have helped, right?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, I think part of my mind was already preparing for it to be a little boring when I conjured up an image of a barren, snowy landscape and gray walls and stuff. I don't think that helped in making it feel lively. A character would have worked. I think even like an animal or something that's alive and interacting with this world, I think would have made that more active for sure.
But I mean, like, at the same time, you did have like a lot of moments when you were talking about previous residents that I thought was really, really strong. Like, I know the very ending when you were talking about the mug that said best sister on this side of Mississippi, but then you went into how the ink was kind of rubbed off, and I mean those are really, really strong moments within this story. So you did do some stuff with a character. It just wasn't pushing the story forward,
Sure. So actually, a question: what do you think happened here? Because I had something in mind, especially as it grew and kind of came together towards the end a little bit. But definitely, I was just leaving clues rather than showing it. Or I guess it is showing versus telling, but you know what I mean. Where it's I don't actually know how much I made it onto the page.
Well, so based off of what I read, I do know that, of course, there was some sort of family there, and they have probably been there for a while, based off of the purple marks on the, I guess, door frame that has ages next to it, and of course there was a bigger, younger sister who had a larger room. But I was a bit unsure as to why the fridge was pushed against the front door. So in my mind went straight to Fallout. There must have been something that probably happened within the town that caused this family to have to barricade themselves inside. And that's kind of where I thought it was going. So yeah, that's kind of what I came up with. Am I right? Am I close?
Yeah, so that's about half of it. So
okay,
the intention, and again, totally fair. If you or listeners didn't get all of this, I have no idea how much I actually put on there. But the idea is that there was a family living here originally, before anything bad happened, which is where all the purple and the green marks come from, and the boots and the bedroom, the bunk beds and everything. So there was a family living there, and then this awful thing happened or whatever, and then the family left. Which is why the markers stop, and then at some point, at least the younger sister came back, which is where the last notch comes from. That she came back and measured herself up again. And then so she lived there for a little while, which is where most of like the mess comes from, where the boarded up windows come from, where the fridge comes from, because she had to stay safe for whatever reason. But she eventually left. She got upset somehow. She like punched that mirror. She trashed her kid's room. Was about to set it on fire, but then put it out with that mug and then left it there, and implying that the older sister, is no longer around. And that's basically everything that I had intended to be in there.
Nice. Well, yeah, I can definitely see the breadcrumbs you were leaving. And I think something that could really work in this story is if you do bring across how lively this place used to be, and then compare that to the place that you are describing.
Yeah.
Only because as I was reading it, I knew that time did pass, but I wasn't sure about how long. I knew that something happened, but I couldn't really find anything that gave me a definite answer. Which, I mean, of course, with something like this, it doesn't have to have a real answer.
But a little bit more guidance for you to figure out. Yeah,
those clues plain, making sure that a dummy pick it up, because I'm very dumb when it comes to reading. I'm horrible at fucking comprehension.
So part of it was, I think, that when I was going into it, I had I wanted to reserve back details because I wanted to have some sort of it's a reveal of this is actually post-apocalypse. This is actually post-apocalypse or something. But that's I don't think hiding it actually helped at all. If I had described on the outside, there being bullet holes or whatever, then that gives you more idea of there's violence and things or whatever else.
I mean, going off of your prose, which I thought was really really good here. You did a fantastic job of describing every possible nook and cranny, and it was really nice to read. But I do think sort of going into this reveal in a very delicate way was the right choice. And I think the reveal at the end after some rework could be really strong. So I think saying that there were bullet holes would kind of ruin this sort of wafty way that the story is sort of flowing. But I do feel that there is a good middle ground you can find between making it obvious that something horrible happened here and just making it a old building, And I mean, that's a really hard spot to find.
A mix between making it very clear that having the bullet holes and making it very clear that they are bullet holes, but not using the word bullet holes.
Really, overall, I really love this story, and I think it is a really great groundwork to a further possible character study of whoever the sort of protagonist of this is, if there is one. I mean, you can still go with the with there not being a person there, while still making the prose and sort of how this story unfolds characterized.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely more that I could have done in here with the storytelling and things. I never described the walls, and I had something I wanted to do there. I can't even remember now, but about
really
I kind of wanted a mural somewhere, and actually in retrospect, I describing a painting would have been really really good, I think, because then you can describe the process and other things.
Well, that's really interesting, because I guess my mind just sort of filled in what the walls looked like with most of the stuff that you are describing. I think you did a really good job of giving us so much to chew on that we're not wanting for any more details, and that stuff that we don't have, let's say the color of the color of the wall. I can just make a inference on that based off of everything else that you were describing.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I didn't necessarily mean I didn't describe the walls, so the story is lacking because of that. I just mean there was an opportunity to do something there that I like had some ideas for, and then I just didn't use them. And I also definitely want to take in what you said about like the feeling of actually being there. Maybe just like taking a moment of like standing inside the living room and really describing of like how does the air feel, what is the like tone there, like what is the emotion that you feel when you stand there.
But you were like almost there when the front door closed, and then it was something like and then a cool chill came in, which I like really liked. But I just think taking that one step further, what does this cold chill make you feel? Like what is this sort of open fridge and this sort of turned over table make you feel in that moment? I think that's the sort of core, the soul really that I felt was lacking here.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, honestly, overall, fantastic. Before we move on, what would you do differently on a second go at this? And, like, what did you learn from this experiment at Deep Detail?
Yeah, so one, I do want to do the actual challenge a bit more in describing that single object. But I on more environmental storytelling stuff, I definitely did feel like that there was stuff to learn there. There was like stuff where I would write and I would go back a lot for this as I figured out what sort of happened. I definitely didn't have like a whole plan going through and like.
So you just started. You just hopped in.
Yeah. I kind of I had like an inkling of an idea, which is always the best to me of like actually getting something written down is not to have the whole idea planned out or and not to have no idea either, but to have something I want to get to, which for me was the notches on the wall and then the bedroom,
which were the strongest points.
I think so too, but yeah, of having like. The going back and forth, I think was something that is good to free yourself for, of not like necessarily tying yourself to a single chronological telling. Yeah.
What would you say that you learned coming out of this experiment?
Just to keep trying with this sort of thing of the environmental storytelling and of laying seeds and groundwork. It was just good practice, I think.
Yeah, it was a fantastic practice, and you gave us another banger. So I appreciate.
Okay, I don't know if I can trust you to call this a banger because that makes me think that the other ones were the same as this one, which kind of lowers the bar a bit to me. But it's cool.
What is a lesser version of a banger? A bop? Because the bop's still pretty good. This is your best SoundCloud EP.
Okay, I was gonna say like if you're gonna say banger, right? If we're imagining that as like the sound of banging, right? Like I'm not talking about the sex thing. I'm talking about like the just like knocking on something, right? Well, a minor version of that is the word knocking. So this was a knocker.
A knocker, yeah. This one knocked my socks off. Ah.
Sure. I don't know if it did. I hope it didn't.
No,
the socks are loose.
I don't normally wear socks, but that's okay.
Does that mean something?
I don't think it means anything.
Okay.
It's just a fact.
Okay.
But all right, enough of this fantastic story. Let's go ahead and move on to our listener submitted story section.
Absolutely, please.
So, thank you so much to everyone who submitted a story. Without y'all, this podcast would have ended right now.
Yeah, well, no, we would have left it just a blank recording for about 30 minutes or so.
30 minutes, yeah. Maybe like you going to, play with your cat and me like drinking water or something.
Yeah, basically.
So, the stories we are going to be reading this week are by Stuck in Reddit Factory, Haunt of the Heron, More Didymail, and Matt Said Words.
Yeah, thanks all for those who came in writing at the last second. We really do appreciate that. Because I know that this week's challenge is a bit difficult and maybe not as like motivating to write for. So yeah, I really appreciate those who jumped in and read out their stories.
Yeah, but also, even though this challenge wasn't the easiest to hop into, I think that this has definitely been one of our most beneficial challenges when it comes to the stories that were submitted.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. First up is Stuck in Reddit Factory with Snap.
So this story starts a little bit. I don't want to say unclear. It's not unclear. Or confusing.
It just throws you in there.
In a point that is not clearly defined to start with, right? But it goes on to describe this image that you will hold in your head with this cat that is waiting over a tunnel for bugs and other things. It's now described as a murder tunnel about halfway through.
Which is a great description.
Yeah, and so Gum is there, who is keeping an eye on the cat, and Gum is just a fun name for this main character. Mm-hmm. The lighting is beautiful, and we describe slowly the fence that the cat is on, which is like being reclaimed by the earth very slowly. And I really like how it's described of like giving in to the climbing grass. And we describe the cat, and it's very beautiful as well. And someone has just come to take a picture of Gum, and that's when we sort of understand that this is a picture, and that Gum is in the beginning it says, in their hand Gum holds a cat, a fence, a moment, and themselves. We understand that it's they're holding the picture. And then we sort of zoom out from inside of the image to the photo itself, which has been losing the fight against the passage of time, just like the fence was against nature. The edges have curled and the colors have faded, but now Gum slides it into an album, hoping that it will keep the memory from bending any further.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, yeah, this is a very solid story. I really love the description in this. It reminds me a lot of certain sections of Pflugerville, which, if you don't know, it's a small town outside of Austin that gave y'all the fantastic Jarvis Lister.
It's a fun name for a town, I'll give it that much.
Pflugerville, yeah. The Fighting Flugies. We put a P in front of every F.
Cool, great.
But yeah, I just really liked it. I mean, it really did capture this sort of beautiful moment in what I'm assuming is probably a suburb of some sort. And then, after the description, we do go deeper into this main character of Gum, which of course I think it's a really cool name. It's interesting. It's different. Haven't seen it. But at the same time, we do get a very solid fact that Gum does have a certain amount of longing, either for this picture or for this moment. So I mean, overall, I just think that was done really well, and you did a really good job at sort of making this setting purposeful. So really, really great job.
I really do love the parallelism of the passage of time and nature, and just the sort of personality that's given to like all of these objects that are being described are frozen in time, but they're also under action as well. The fence is, it's just a fence, but also it is being claimed by the earth. And I thought that was a really cool way of making these objects have a personality of their own and a tone, and making them last more than a moment, I think.
Definitely. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Stuck in Reddit Factory. Up next is By Haunt of the Heron with an untitled story.
That's right. So this story is very, very cool. So we sort of slow reveal of where we are. We're at this town, Southcliff, basically the edge of the world. So far to the south, there are these mountains that everyone used to understand as the edge of the world, until some people dynamited a tunnel all the way through these Mount Everest height mountains, until they finally got to the other side, where it's freezing cold, where it's now labeled Southcliff. So And here we describe what this place is. It's this little town that they know they're at the edge of the world, and they've kind of given up on exploring any further. Or the edge of the world becomes a confusing of title, but these explorers, they don't explore any further. They kind of feel that it's futile, but like they think that they could, because beyond this cliff down way below, and it's a mountain length down to the bottom, is this ocean. But it's not just an ocean, it's this roiling mess with these shifting multi-hued clouds with waves that are hundreds and hundreds of feet tall, with storms with so much lightning that it shakes the earth, and everyone has to wear earplugs whenever the lightning is spotted to not get damaged from the thunder. And just this really a sort of mythical, sublime sense of a gigantic and overpowering nature beyond that. But even beyond that, on perfect nights where everything's clear, the main character says that they can spot very far off in the distance another cliff on the other side. They can only be spotted sometimes, only if you kind of really try to see it. And sometimes they see what they think are people there, which worries them and but also excites them at the same time. But now they're getting old, and it's harder to see that cliff with their failing eyesight, or maybe their failing interest. And that is sort of the moment that we leave off of, that they're sort of losing sight of this grand vision, even though they know that they can't really get there, at least anytime soon, considering the obstacles. They are affected by the memory of it and the idea of it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this is a really great story. I mean, we have a super well described lead-in to this like true story. You know, we're getting these beautiful shots of the mountains and of certain things, and it really does feel like these are stills that are in motion, really. And then as we go further down, we are met with this town, and we really get a strong sense of that. And then we're met with this main character and sort of their ambitions that are very much so mirrored by the people that are around them. And yeah, overall, I just think that this story continues to grow and continues to gain steam as it keeps going, you know, and nowhere within it is this voice, this very descriptive, pointed voice that also sort of leans every now and then into figurative language that really does take us throughout this story. So fantastic job. I really, really like this one.
Yeah, so Haunted the Heron says in one of their comments that this story was actually very, very rushed, and you know, they didn't feel super great about it, basically. And I think that might be true, but this story is wonderful, and I absolutely much prefer someone to submit a rush story than not at all. So yeah, thank you so much for submitting, and don't worry about, you know, things being rushed or anything like that. I absolutely think it's still worth it to you put in an idea to the page and carry it out and see what you can do with it, because I really enjoyed reading this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if something is rushed, you are still getting those ideas out there. You are throwing the ball on the wall so that something good may come out of it. I mean, this is definitely a really great foundation for a far deeper story that you can develop in the future. So really, really great job, Haunt of the Heron. Mm-hmm. All right, and up next is Maura Diddamail with an untitled story.
Well, so in classic Matt Freeman style, this is a sci-fi story that doesn't appear to be in the beginning. So we have here this really beautiful image of a cottage in the woods, and it's just a kind of an idyllic place. A cottage by a small dry stream bed. And some stones and things like that. And then we take a parenthetical to describe how this is not actually a true geographic landscape. This is something constructed artificially, but so detailed and so imperfectly done that it feels utterly natural, and the knowledge that it is false and persuasion of it being natural sort of wore out, and then the feeling of it, though, it standing in the glade of this forest, it's only as natural as a terrarium or a bonsai, still feels like true nature, where people can forget and really believe that they're just somewhere in the Pacific Northwest or something like that. And that's when finally we see that there's a couple things wrong. The light's too diffuse, and it's still not quite real. And when the viewpoint walks up a hill, they can see the horizon, which lifts up into the air, a landscape that revolves around in a cylinder rather than an actual planet. And above, instead of a real sun, it's another long cylinder, a light that shifts back and forth from one end of the cylinder to another. And so we describe this, I forget what they're called, but basically a giant space station that just feels like nature. Mm-hmm. But even though it's not real, and even though space is actually just some amount of space below their feet, this does feel like a natural, real place, and that kind of makes it worth it in itself. Or that makes it worth it even if it's false. It's a illusion that is worth giving into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I really dug this story. I mean, I think the use of second person is really well placed within this story. I mean, it's mixed with this really great detail that really does bring you there, and it makes you feel like you are walking throughout this place. And I really did like the twist of this cottage being fake. And I do like the sort of question that is being asked. It's like, even if it is fake, but it feels very, very real. I mean, does it even matter that it's fake in the first place? And I just really like how that sort of idea is being shown through how the sort of imperfections in this place is being pointed out. And I love that as we are progressing through this story, the camera is kind of being pulled out, and we're able to see even more. And then we're able to see, oh, they're in space. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's that. So yeah, this story does a fantastic job of, I guess, discovering itself, and it really does take you with it step by step. So fantastic job. Mm-hmm. Well, all right, our last story for this week is by Matt Said Words with a untitled story.
People really hate titles this week, I suppose.
I know. I mean, hey, who needs them?
Who needs them? I didn't title my story, actually. So, well, okay, I didn't when I wrote it.
But you did when you posted it?
I did it when I read it, though, because I haven't read it yet. So you'll have a title when I read it. So it actually does have a title. So tell me what the title is, because I don't know what the title is. Anyway... so this story starts off with My Dearest Red. So this is actually a sort of fanfic, I think, of This Is How You Lose the Time War, which was covered by the Doof Book Club just a bit ago. And I heard very, very good things about it, and I still have to read it at some point. But this is a really beautiful story that stands on its own and describes this tree that has grown over a very, very long period of time. So there's these two rivals, Blue and Red. Blue's writing here to Red, and Blue is now like taking the time to enjoy this tree that Red has sort of grown as a message for them. And they're like sort of rivals, but clearly they care about each other very much as well. And we just describe here of all the ways that Blue has enjoyed this tree and felt it and used it to think of Red, right? How was it for you nurturing the seed to seedling? How was it spilling life-giving waters onto its earthen womb? And sort of just wondering of like what it was like to be there while this tree grew. And we describe here Blue taking a bite of this apple, and it's wonderfully sensory. I almost said sensual, which was like
sensual.
Yeah. Which is it's really, really great. And I want to describe some of I want to read some of it. The ensuing bite lit my tongue with the flavors of the ground you must have tread, the boots you wore, the spring water you fed it, and the hands, your hands, that cared for it. The skin was bitter and vital, sparking the rational feeling that I would be punished for desecrating its pure life, only to be invited back by the intoxicating sweetness of its pale and fleshy innards. I savored the bite as its texture and crisp skin turned mealy on my tongue and gritty between my teeth. I felt as if I could plant a seed of that apple and grow you. So that's just a wonderful... I think the story is basically like the ideal version of what the deep description, challenge is sort of done. That going into like not just like the taste of an apple, but like the feeling of it as it changes over time, I thought was just brilliant. Yeah, so it describes this whole tree and how it grew and what it was like to be around it, before finally describing how Blue cut down the tree to find the message that Red left for it. Sort of like, yeah, yearning for each other, even though, as I understand, they are some sort of enemies, but they want to communicate with each other this way. And it's just this really beautiful moment shared over time, like a message created over decades and received some amount of time later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the prose within this story are just beautiful. I mean, as soon as you start reading, you're just hit with all of these sort of twisty, turning lines, and it's almost sort of intoxicating in a way, because like as you keep reading, you feel the emotion that Blue is really putting into this page, and like you can tell sort of how their dynamic works between Blue and Red, and you really understand the whole purpose of why Blue is really writing this. And I mean, overall, this story has no fat whatsoever. It just keeps pushing and keeps going, and then you are hit with more about this tree. And I just really love the moment of the apple, as you said, how it's like juicy and crisp, but also you can feel the like work that was put into it. And I don't know, it just this story is just so ripe with this description that there's honestly not a lot to really say about it, besides that it's just it's so well composed, and there's such control over the prose in this. So yeah, I love this story through and through. Thank you so much for bringing it to us.
Yeah, I hope Matt said words that you really felt like you got something good out of writing this, because I think I did.
Because you hit it.
Out of reading it.
You hit the nail right over the head. Fantastic. Well, all right. That is all of the stories for this week. But we do want to give a good old do the right thing thank you to everyone who did submit a story. So thank you very much to Stuck in Reddit Factory.
Thank you to Haunt of the Heron.
Thank you, Mora Didamail.
And thank you, Matt Said Words.
Mm-hmm. And we also want to say thank you to everyone who did leave 2 or more comments. Leaving comments, not only under your own story, but under someone else's story, is the best way for you to compose your ideas on your own work and give someone else's work crucial feedback that can help them and you become a better writer.
So I saw that there was some people that didn't write a story this week but did leave comments, and we really do appreciate that. If your energy flags, or for whatever reason you just feel like you can't write a story this week, which totally happens. It's happened a lot to me this past year. A fucking year of pandemics. It's not been good for the old not depressed brain. So
it has not been good whatsoever.
No, but so I definitely understand. But yeah, so those who left the comments in spite of that, I really do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So thank you so much to Stuck in Reddit Factory. Thank you to Haunt of the Heron, and thank you, Matt Said Words. Thank you so much for leaving comments. If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to /r/Do the Right Thing on Reddit. All you have to do is go to the most recent week and use 3 of 4 randomly generated words in your short story.
That's right. You can also follow us on Twitter, and to see the words as soon as they come out, which is at RightThingCast. You can also send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com and just let us know whatever you want. We also are starting to finally post episodes again on our subreddit. So if you want to leave comments or anything like that on an episode, you can do that there.
If you want to support us and all of the wonderful things happening in Doof Media, you can do that by donating to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to get access to the Doof Media Discord and exclusive bonus content.
That's right, and there's so much going on at Doof Media. Just recently, I know I've been hyping it up for a very long time, but the game club for Celeste just came out very recently. Yesterday, as of recording, 2 days as of posting. Elliot and Ruben were joined by my friend Elliot, who might also jump on this podcast sometime soon as well, to talk about Celeste and some other queer games. It was a really, really lovely discussion. So if you haven't checked that out, please do, even if you haven't played the game Celeste.
It's a great game.
I mean, I guess it would have spoilers, but whatever. I mean, you should probably ask them if that's worth avoiding it for that. But there was also discussion of other games near the end, and I found it really enlightening, and a lot of talk about trans issues and LGBT stuff and all that. And it was really, it was lovely. So check that out if you haven't already.
Definitely. Well, all right, I think it's time to roll on into next week's words.
But before that, what's the challenge for next week, Jarvis?
Thank you for asking. The challenge for next week will be mystery. So please send us your best mystery scene, mystery story. All I want from you is to continuously question what is around the next corner within your story.
And so in my mind, mystery is really defined by like two things. One is withholding some amount of information, right? Which makes the audience like ask questions, and the second thing being of like figuring it out yourself, or at least giving the audience a chance or an option to wonder for themselves, not necessarily to get the correct answer, not necessarily to not necessarily that they have to figure it out on their own, but to wonder and to think about it on their own. And I think that's what good mysteries do, of just like making you have to think about it. So like, a mystery where the murderer, who the murderer is, and how it's done and everything. It's not really truly a mystery, even if the characters are figuring it out.
Also, I have found that a really good mystery has a core conflict that does not have a obvious or clear answer to it,
That's right. And I mean, some stuff can be known. Like, you can know who the murderer is, but not necessarily like why they did it or how or whatever else. And of course, you don't actually just have to do a murder, but that is a classic way to go. So, don't shy away from it for practice. But, it could be a theft. It could be a wondering of, like, what is the secret of some system or magic, or why did someone do anything, really?
My only wish is that no one brings Murder on the Orient Express.
Sure, it might have been done a couple too many times, but if you want to do a twist on it, go for it.
Well, yeah, it's just maybe it's just me, but in that film and book, I did not like the twist ending whatsoever. Have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, then you have no clue what I am talking about. But
that's right.
If you have seen the movie, you know exactly what I am talking about. I think it's too convenient, and it barely makes sense.
Sure. Maybe I'll watch it tonight. Who knows? My mom's never stops recommending it.
I think the best part about that film is the cinematography. I think you will really like that.
Sure. But all right, that is the challenge for next week, and I think you're writing next week, Jarvis, so I wish you luck writing a mystery.
I know. It's been a while since I've written proper, so I will give it my best go.
What are the words for next week?
Thank you so much for asking. The words for next week are temple, patrol, slip, and asset.
So temple, which I think has two primary definitions.
Place
temple,
of worship.
Like a holy place of worship or anything like that. It could be a sacred place. That could also be used ironically, right? A gym is a temple to the human body, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but also your temples, which is just the sides of your head, basically, where people rub whenever you get a headache, right? There is the next word is patrol, which is to sort of search an area repeatedly for intruders or anything like that, for the unexpected. So usually police patrol, but it could be something else, some other military thing, or you could just patrol for, animals or anything else. There's a lot of options there. Slip, which I think is a pretty broad word. So you can slip and fall. A slip of paper is a small piece of paper.
You can slip someone something.
That's right. So it's a versatile word, I think, that one. You can wear slippers as well. A lot of derivatives of that too. And last one, asset, which is any sort of valuable thing that someone has. It can be incorporeal as well. It could be something abstract. A euphemism for big honkadonkers is to have big assets, or on a male would be
well endowed.
Another, yes, that would also be a big asset. So you could have big financial assets, huge tracts of land or whatever else. Yeah, so lots of options with these. I think it's definitely lending itself towards mystery. What's the story you're going to write, Jarvis?
The story that I'm going to write next week will be the mystery of how was it built? The pyramids within Egypt, top down or bottom up? You see, this
Okay.
this is going to be a historically historically accurate telling of a guard on their patrol of this temple, how he watched it year after year slowly being built, brick by brick by brick. He wasn't the best guard, of course. Sometimes he would slip from his patrol to chat up the local ladies. But of course he was looked at as a asset because without his swift hand, nothing would have gotten done. This whole story will keep on going, and it's pretty much about how to properly build this temple and why it was built from the top down.
That's brilliant.
Thank you.
As an aside, in retrospect, how it's made, as cool as it is, just feels very dystopian to me. I don't know why, but the idea,
the pyramid,
yeah, the show.
How it's made. Okay.
Yeah, how it's made. The show, I don't know, something of just like a disembodied camera going
watching
through
processes.
this inhuman landscape that just goes on forever, basically, endlessly repeating with no, room for error. I don't know. It's just something liminal and uncomfortable about it.
You know what? I get exactly what you were saying, because in most of those shots of let's say a factory, there is no people. It's just bottles flying forever, and they're in stuff with juices and stuff, and yeah, honestly, it makes me wonder how sort of small humans are compared to what we have made,
That's good and deep.
Yeah, so I guess it's like a existential question in a sense.
So I will be telling a story about this is a fanfic of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
The best one.
Right, so this is just a fanfic of one particular scene where Indiana Jones sneaks in. He slips past some patrols, going around to steal, one of that primary asset at the center, which is those orb thingies. It's the egg thingies, I suppose. I don't quite know. But in this one, rather than being faced with a human sacrifice, instead, Indiana Jones is faced with the consequences of his colonialism, when the natives turn their Western educations back on him and put him in jail for just being a terrible colonialist and just stealing from everyone, and they kind of put him on trial, and he just has to face his crime. I mean, he's just like a sentence and a pretty big fine. He has to like return some stuff, and that's basically the primary thing, because these are people. They don't try to like eat him or something, because that would be weird. So they don't do that. So they just do the right thing in that scenario, and Indiana Jones returns the Temple of Doom.
Nice.
He returns it to them.
Is Short Round